Before my time runs out, what I'm going to try to do is see if I can define some of the most essential elements of somatics, since I think it's very difficult to do. So here goes. Okay. Firstly, somatics is the practice of paying attention or tracking all the sensations and signals, information within the body or that come from the outside that have an impact on the body-mind, and making choices about what to do with this awareness. B, embodiment and somatics are synonymous. C, all somatics are concerned with integrating the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. And we learn to experience the body from within. D, soma is a Greek word understood by the Greeks as meaning body, mind, and spirit. It got reduced in our culture to just soma, meaning body. They meant it as body, mind, and spirit. Soma means a living body. And this is a Charles Darwin quote, a living organism that is an integral and ordered process of embodied elements which cannot be separated from either their evolved past or adapted future, and it remains a soma as long as it's living. E, somatics is not a completely new field only to Western civilization. It has its roots in ancient cultures such as Asian, African, Native American, and the Middle East, and have developed spiritual practice that aim at dissolving the dualistic condition of human experience. Contemporary somatics was introduced in the 60s and have been trying to bring together the East and the West. These ancient cultures honored and recognized the connection between body, mind, and spirit. They recognize the interdependent processes and non-linear, get that word, it's really important, non-linear paths of a living organism. That's why I think of it as improvisational. Thomas Hanna, a neurological practitioner in 1976, put the word somatics in writing. Then secondly, I see that there are four approaches to learning about somatics. There's another category here, which are body work, movement repatterning, body psychotherapy, and theory. Am I okay on time? I'm going to keep going. Okay. Okay. I'm going to skip that quote from Mary Whitehouse, but it's important. Thirdly, what all somatics have in common is general principles. Here we go. 1, learning somatics is experiential and exploratory in nature. I consider curiosity as a defining principle. 2, somatics is non-judgmental. We study, observe, and notice body, mind, sensations, and patterns in a non-judgmental way. We retrain the mind to observe and be curious. 3, somatics is non-hierarchical, and learning takes place in a new paradigm that is horizontal as opposed to vertical, where the authority is usually placed solely on the teacher or practitioner's knowledge. As practitioners, we believe the power to change exists with the student or client's own wisdom and inner knowing. As teachers and therapists, we see ourselves as facilitators to students and clients finding their own truth. Our aim is to empower the individual. 4, I'm almost there. We believe there is an inherent wisdom or intelligence of the body. We believe the body-mind can remember its original organization. You can talk to Bonnie Cohen about embryology. It's pretty amazing. As well as repattern because the cells hold our history. And because as somas, we are constantly recreating. We can and we are constantly recreating. And lastly, this is a really lastly, somatics is about relationship. The whole equals all parts and the parts equal the whole. The planet is a living organism. This may be too simplistic, but it's all the time I have left, and in my view, if we become aware of ourselves in such a deeply connected way, we could then possibly recognize and respect the aliveness and interconnectedness of other, community, and world. I keep thinking we might make different choices about how we impact our world.
Oh, my sister, it's our manifesto.
Is that okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Wow, that was 8 minutes. That's great. Wow. Now, moving right along from the fabulous Carol Swann, we're going to go to Augusta Moore, who is the ballet director of ODC and also a Feldenkrais practitioner.
Hi, you guys. Well, actually, Carol and I were talking about, you were going to talk about society a little bit at the end, and I just want to bring that up, that this is really part of my interest as a ballet teacher and teaching somatic study is how to deal with having a very codified technique, but then having an artistic voice within that. How do you have a uniqueness and a sense of individuality through this extremely tight, very precise technique? And I see that in a very similar way to society itself, that society often insists on a very certain way of being. And this is, to me, my own little manifestation of how to have a unique voice as a human being in society, and doing it within this codified technique. So that's important to me, and I also actually appreciate the codified technique of ballet in the same way that if someone says to you, oh, just write something. We like to be told, oh, we're going to write in this direction, write on this, write on that, and to me the technique gives us a path to follow. So I appreciate ballet technique for that reason, due to my utter lack of borders. My interest in somatic study started somewhat formally when I was 18 years old, and I was coming home. I took my first professional ballet job when I was 15 and went to Chicago and danced with Maria Tolchief. And it was fantastic and wonderful, and I danced wonderful ballets, but I was thoroughly crippled at 18 after that. I wasn't particularly well trained for it, and I was once reading an anatomy chart, and Miss Tolchief slapped it out of my hands. She didn't want anybody doing anything that might interfere with the plan. And it was completely self-obliterating. Not very fun. The way, you know, it's like going out drinking all night, something like that. You like to do it, but you got to come back. So I went and was fortunate to find an inspired physical therapist who didn't identify with a particular somatic study, but she herself had cut short her career while packing to join the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. A flower pot fell and severed her Achilles tendon. That's the night she's leaving. Wow. And so she threw herself, I know, into this study. And I was fortunate enough to be her student when I was 18, where she taught anatomy in the basement and made me go upstairs and only allowed me to take 2 minutes of the ballet class. And then that was extremely difficult time in my life, but held me back quite a bit, but insisted on making me feel and learn to see. And she would bring me pictures of what a healthy arabesque looked like. And during that time, she gave me 3 books, which were the Anatomy Coloring Book, Mabel Todd, Thinking Body, and the Vaganova Syllabus, which is the Russian ballet technique. And I still have those 3 books. And at the time, they were rather over my head, but I used them a lot still and have practiced with them many times. So I went on to dance with Pennsylvania Ballet and San Francisco Ballet. And toward my time at San Francisco Ballet, I started accumulating a huge amount of injuries that I couldn't get over. And after a year on the physical therapy table, I finally, someone recommended the Feldenkrais method. And I started to work with it, and I didn't like it very much, but I could tell it was perfect for me. Didn't really like slowing down. And it actually took me another 5 years to go into the training, but I worked with it. And the wonderful thing is that I was still in shape as a dancer, so I used myself, as I usually do in my life, as a laboratory. And so I would take my work that I did in my Feldenkrais training and apply it immediately in the studio, both as a teacher and a dancer. And I think that's why I was able to be so successful with using Feldenkrais in my teaching, because I was very active in it. I often tell my students, so bear with me, those of you who have heard this, about my time when I went to a Feldenkrais conference and accidentally signed up for a week of the pelvic clock. And the pelvic clock is a movement where you stand and you take your pelvis around the numbers of a clock.